Shall we play?
It is.
This is when it's really, I'm really serious. I'm ready for it. Hey everyone, this is Kayleigh and Immanuel. It's great to have you here. We want you to know that you are loved and there's a purpose for your life.
And today we want to talk about contraception, more specifically the 3 months or the first 3 months of our marriage, some of our thoughts before we met each other, also then during our engagement time, and then now looking back post-marriage.
So I would say, before I met Kayleigh, I didn't really look much into contraception. I mean, I didn't have to think about pill, I didn't have to think about condoms or anything. So for me, I just knew, okay, I don't want something abortive. I also didn't really want to use the pill.
Or you didn't want your future wife to use it?
I didn't want to use the pill. I didn't want my future wife to use the pill. But I haven't really looked into it a lot. That's just because of ignorance, I guess, or just not something relevant to me at that time.
Yeah, so before we met, all I knew is that my mum had always used the pill, so that was quite normal to me. And it was only maybe through friends saying that they did or didn't get along with certain pills, mainly for reasons of weight gain and maybe skin breakouts. That's about as much exposure as I'd had to the pill. So that was it for me as well, like not extremely in depth. Yeah.
When we got engaged,
yeah,
it was coming about us being married. What were the things that we were thinking about?
Yeah, what was your perspective?
So my perspective was that I didn't really like the idea of using condoms. I also didn't really like, I certainly didn't want to use any abortive methods for contraception, because for us as believers, it's very clear that we are not the ones to decide about life or death. If there was to be a child, we should have it. And I think there are some abortive methods.
Yeah, like the morning after pill.
Yeah. So that was certainly something we didn't want.
Yep.
Very soon it became quite clear that we actually, to bring all the things together that we wanted, it was quite difficult to actually find the right contraception method for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, around when we got engaged is when we were thinking more about contraception. So I was on the NHS site looking at all the different options, the pros, cons, how it affects you. And yeah, I think as soon as you take out hormonal contraception, you have very few options. And yeah, one could be the copper coil, which I considered for quite a while. Now, it's quite a controversial one because so many women complain that copper coil gives them really heavy periods, and especially really heavy if you already had a heavy period without the coil. It gets even heavier and longer, apparently, and also cramps. And apparently it takes months before those side effects go down. So considered that, and the only other real option was natural planning. So I was looking at the Natural Cycles app, and that encourages you to take a temperature in the morning and sometimes to take a lutein hormone test like 3 days a month. So those are my two options at that point. And I think I was hoping, I was preparing for our wedding as if we were going to use Natural Cycles. So I downloaded the app, I paid for the year subscription and got the thermometer, and I was measuring every morning my temperature. Yeah. So that was that point. Okay, and then marriage. What changed for you once we actually got married?
What changed for me when we actually got married?
Yeah.
Well, I think when you have this natural cycle, you have green days and you have red days. And so you have to think about what do we do on those red days.
But red days doesn't mean period. So green days means you can technically have unprotected sex. It means that the woman is not ovulating, so not fertile to have a baby. and on the red days is when you should use a condom or some other form of contraception or not have sex because you are fertile and you could have a baby. Yeah. So, yeah.
What was it actually? Was it because of convenience? Because I didn't like using condoms that we then... What made us actually have the pill?
So I started taking the pill after, I think, 2 weeks of us getting married. And until then, we had unprotected sex. Until then. In the app, I was green, basically. And I think the reason for me is that, my whole life, I've been celibate and I've been thinking about this whole contraception thing as a theory. And then when it came to it, and I realised, oh my goodness.
No, this is real.
No, this is real. It's like, no, if this app doesn't work...
There could be a baby that could come out of it. Yeah.
It's like, we just got married. I'm not... Like, obviously, if we did get pregnant, we would keep the baby. But ideally, please give us a couple of years or so. Like, we need some more time. So that is what made me want the pill.
It's like, God, I trust you with this, but how much faith do I have right now? How much? And to what extent is it God's responsibility, and to what extent is it also what we also then have to play in all of this, right? So that's, I think, when we decided to use the pill.
Yeah.
And that's when things got interesting, because I think the first weeks of using the pill was quite fine. They were okay. But things then, after one in particular, after 2 months, got like real bad. And it's like, me, from my perspective as a husband of Kayleigh, so periods for Kayleigh in general have always been fine. Like, I didn't even have to be like, oh, she's moody, she's probably on her period. No, she just needs some chocolate, like that. That's what it is. Like, whenever she's moody, I know I just need to give her some chocolate and she'll be fine.
Or just food.
Or just any food.
I'm not that fussy.
She's quite low maintenance. But periods are fine and she doesn't have big pain or anything. And so life with her is actually quite easy. And I wasn't even really surprised because I knew her already.
Yeah.
But when she got on the pill, and after 2 months, life became a bit different. So I tried to do well. I tried to like run in the morning, first thing waking up, not every morning, but I tried to do it every now and then. And whenever I tried to get up in the morning and be energized, I would just look, and Kayleigh was she was still in bed, and she was as if she was depressed, and she had much less drive of getting out, doing a workout. And whenever I then was able to encourage her, or whenever she kind of forced herself to do something, she would then just like, we were running, and then after 5 minutes she'd be like, no, I can't do this. So, and that was tough. Like, that was tough for me, because I was feeling fine, like my body was fine, kind of, like, obviously I suffered because Kayleigh started suffering, and I could really notice, because whoever knows Kayleigh knows that Kayleigh's always how she is, and she's bubbly, she's lively, she's always smiley. But during that time, it wasn't like that. And so that was so different for me with doing live, basically, right? And so that was not an easy time. And there were times when it was even difficult to do work. Like, you would just fall asleep during work. You would read the Bible, and I would read my Bible, and after 5 minutes, you would just be sleeping. Because you had no energy, you had no power, and I would feel like, what is happening with our lives, right? What is happening with her? Like, that's not how I know her.
Did you think at, say, 6 weeks in, that it was the pill? No. What did you think it was?
No, I had no clue. And that was weird about it because it was very gradual. Like your sleep became a bit worse, and waking up you would just feel tired. You were tired the whole time, and that was not easy. I mean, I wouldn't say it was really difficult for our relationship as such. Like, it wasn't like we started fighting.
No.
But I really had to be I had to be kind of strong. You had to be stronger, but I also had to be strong to like be patient, be there, and just be positive and help support you with whatever you're going through right now, right? So that was the problem, because I didn't really know what was happening.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually asked you before whether you thought that my low, sad mood was related to the pill or not.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that. I mean, I didn't know. I didn't realise that it was the pill because it was so gradual. So the background for me is that before going on the pill, I did talk to quite a few people, and we did speak to our friends about what contraception they use. And I did have multiple very kind and loving women like tell me, Kayleigh, do not go on the pill. And they told me straight up, my best friend Savannah, she told me straight up, Kayleigh, do not go on the pill. And she shared how it made her feel. She said that she had, you know, really strong depressive symptoms, and that it affected her mood, her energy, and so many things about the way she felt in her body. And yeah, she wasn't the only one to say that. So I knew that. But because at that moment we just got married, and this huge idea of maybe being pregnant was so apparent in my mind, I decided to try it. So going into it, I was conscious of my mood because I knew that's something that a lot of women can be affected in that area. So I was trying to just be quite conscious. But I would say the first month, I was almost normal. It was enough to just slide. Like maybe you just had a bit worse sleep that night and you're just like, let it slide. Month 2, those little changes, I think that's where they really started to add up. And I was realizing I do not sleep well. I wake up and my head, it feels like I haven't slept. It feels heavy, and not just my head, but it's as if my brain has it's like it can't control itself. In a really weird way, I just had no motivation at all.
I remember when you, all of a sudden, you were at work and you started crying. You just went into the bed and you started crying. And I remember you telling me, I don't feel myself. No. I'm not myself.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening? Like, I got frightened from those situations, those statements. I was like, what's happening with my life, right? Yeah. It was quite scary because I haven't really experienced that before.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't experienced that before. So I think that happened the week before I decided to come off the pill. So for month 2, I had these symptoms, and to be honest, I was still just thinking, well, I'm not sleeping well, so maybe I just need to go to bed earlier. Maybe I need to exercise more, because I hadn't been exercising because I had no motivation. So I was blaming it on these things. And then by the end of month 3, that's when I had 2 breakdowns, I think like 2 days apart. And yeah, one of them, it was the middle of the day. Nothing had happened. There was nothing to stress me. I had just this overwhelming need to break down and cry. I felt like I wanted to run away. Like I didn't want him to see me. I didn't understand what was happening, and I just felt so sad. So yeah, I stopped work and I went and cried. And yeah, the only thing I could have done was just like hug my knees to my chest and sit on the bed, and I cried, and I was trying to stop myself because I was scared. And yeah, and then Immanuel saw me and he hugged me and tried to comfort me, and you did comfort me, but it was as if there was something else deciding whether I cry or not. And then I was like, I calmed, and then I got up And then I went to like, I think stir some food in the pot, and I just broke down again. I was like, what is wrong with me? So this was the first time. So I thought, okay. And at that point, I had booked an appointment to get
the copper coil.
No, the hormonal coil.
Hormonal coil.
I had booked an appointment to get the hormonal coil because it has a lower dose of progesterone in there. And at this point, I was on the progesterone only pill, those 3 months. So I had this breakdown about 4 days before I was meant to get the coil. That was the first one. 2 days later, I think actually the day before I was meant to get the coil, or 2 days before, I had another complete meltdown. I think meltdown is more accurate of a word. And it was at that point I said to myself, Kayleigh, you are cancelling that appointment and you are not taking the pill for another day. I wanted to just throw it as far away from me as possible. I thought, this is not worth it. If I get pregnant, I get that, like, fine, I'm gonna love that child.
But at least you haven't destroyed yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
At least my life is my life on the way there. Yeah.
And it felt like as if it was almost God allowing you to become worse, for you to realize that I shouldn't do this, and I also shouldn't have the coil.
Yeah.
It was as if he stopped you.
It was like the perfect time.
Yeah. So that's when we decided to go back to the natural planning.
Yeah. So worth it. I think once I was off, even the next day, I still felt heavy, but I didn't feel as heavy. I had a bit of motivation. I think over those next months, I kind of came back to being normal again. Like, I'm sleeping great now. Yeah, I sleep really deeply. I love going to the gym, which I've always loved, and for that time I had no desire for anything that I used to love doing. And yeah, I can enjoy the things that I enjoy again. And I still get a bit moody when I'm hungry. I'm sorry.
I know how to deal with it.
But I'm not moody every time I wake up. Yeah. So that, and I have said to Immanuel before that it feels a bit like the pill did steal some of those first months of our marriage. And it's something I know that for some women, it does work. It does work for some. But I also know that for some and many, it does have a huge effect on your emotions and your well-being. And yeah, I think it's good to compare. If you're on the pill, you've been taking it for years, and you have thought to yourself sometimes, I don't feel like myself, or you've had some thoughts that were a bit depressive and you don't know why, like maybe it is related, and maybe it's worth seeing other options for a period of time to see how your body reacts to it. I could at least encourage that, just open-mindedness toward the topic and awareness of how it can affect you. Yeah.
And because we want to share our experience, but also know that it's not only about us, we also want to see how we can encourage you guys. What are the things that we, from what we have learned, can also pass on to like other couples that are thinking about the topic of contraception?
Yeah. Well, I think something to have in mind if you're supporting someone who's using hormonal contraception, or even going through any trauma really, but on the topic of contraception, one thing that is helpful, because it does affect both of you, is not to give support blindly. And what I mean is, when you're discussing the topic, because it does, like for us, Immanuel might need to wear a condom, and for me, I would be putting hormones in. Immanuel definitely did say to me, I support you, and if you don't want to take the hormones, that's fine. I want to support you in that. he also said to me though, like his concerns or things that he's thinking about with condoms or with the app or with me taking contraception, and then also to keep track of your mood day to day. So if you're currently taking or not taking the hormones, to compare that every morning or every evening, because yeah, like for me, when I was on the pill, I really thought I was going crazy, and I thought that I was making it up because I'd heard about people that were affected on the pill, and I was like, no, maybe it's in my head. So I had to write down, I had to track it in my period tracking app, how I felt every morning, and that really helped because I could see the pattern.
Understanding how you feel and relating that back to what you're doing at the moment. I mean, maybe it's also food. Maybe you're just eating junk food all the time, you know, or maybe you're eating loads of sugar in the evenings and that's why you sleep really bad. But it can also be the pill. One thing I would say as well is, from the perspective of the husband in that way, is to know how to truly be patient and loving and supportive, because for me it was difficult to see her like that, because that was not the kind of like woman that I married, you know.
Yeah.
That was like losing herself and was just like awful, feeling awful. And it's like, what do I do in that case, right? But I think from talking to each other about it, and for me to know, okay, this is something that we're going through right now. Let me see what I can do about this. But first and foremost, I want to show her love, and I want to show her that she can be fully supported by me, and she can find that refuge and that shelter that she needs, even in those darkest moments, you know. I think that's my role as a husband in that aspect then.
Yeah. And yeah, Emmanuel was so patient with me. You know, I had so much guilt because I didn't understand what was going on, so how could he possibly understand? But he was really so patient. If you are supporting someone who doesn't know what's happening, being there alone it means a lot, and it does a lot. Yeah. So yeah, that was our experience, and
I hope that was valuable to you too, whatever moment you are right now in your life. Maybe this is something you can take on for when you are married, or someone who you know who might go through similar time.
And if you know anyone who is thinking about contraception or might find this useful, then please do share it with them, and give us a like as well, and subscribe if you're new. We do plan to make lots more videos.
Nice, so you can look forward to that.
Yeah, you can look forward to it. So yeah, that's it from us, guys.
Thank you for watching. See you next time.
And in your teeth. Here and here.
You can take it away.